Hi there, this is Tanya Buckingham, and I'm here to report on one of our last videos for the Online Masters program, and I'm reporting on my Social Responsibility Action Plan, and my focus is on the cartography industry. And so I thought I would start out with a quick definition of cartography, and simply put, it is the creation or study of the map-making process. And there are several types of skill sets that are required in cartography. It's actually a much broader field under the broad umbrella of the geospatial industry. So lots of organizations from private industry to government and government at all levels. And the types of skills that people need are really varied in this field. It can be computer science, it can be analysis, it can be somebody who really has a brain for statistics, to people like me who are designers. It's really all over the place, and this causes a lot of challenges for hiring and supporting all those different types of people. And so that's what we'll be looking at a little bit today, and what I'll be researching in my Social Responsibility Action Plan and the research that follows it. So what's happened? There's been a lot of changes in the last 20 years, and specifically in the last 10 years. So 20 years ago, MapQuest came out, and suddenly people were interacting with maps in a way that they hadn't before. The ability to perform wayfinding on a free website was pretty revolutionary at the time. 10 years later, Google Maps came about, and it was a similar product to MapQuest, but the difference was that people were able to hack into it and make changes on their own. And this led to a period of just complete exploration and innovation. It's classified as the democratization of maps, or the opening of map making to everyone, without the need for specialized tools. And that wasn't entirely true, because you still needed a really solid set of tools and the access to certain types of tools, and they're still pretty complex. But you had to be a pretty committed amateur in order to figure those things out. But there were a lot of committed amateurs who then became the experts, who then drove the field in a whole new way. And it was this crazy time of software developing and new coding languages and new ways to use these things and these tools also. So that's slowed in the last couple of years, and now what we see is there's still this place for what I would consider a traditional cartographer, even though when I say that, it's still mostly production on computers, but I'm referring more to static maps, not something you can interact with. So there's been that. There's been the development of interactive cartography, which I'm sure you've all seen. And then in addition to that, there's been this creation of this tool set, and everybody's sort of backing up now and saying, how do we develop the tools in the best way for more people to be able to be making their own maps? So it's been a really fascinating time. And so how does this relate to CSR? Well, with the rapid changes, many companies went out of business. Many industries in similar situations were going through the same changes, and those industries were supporting the cartography industry. And so trying to keep up, and the changing nature of the type of person who was working at cartography organizations really requires, to do this well, really requires an intentional behavior. And Glavis and Kelly describe corporate social responsibility as caring for the well-being of all stakeholders, including your employees. And so with the purpose of also creating value for the business. And so that's really where the heart of my research will focus. Now that the dust is settling in the cartography world, what I want to know is who's behaving in socially responsible ways when it comes to the treatment of their employees. And whether they know that they're doing that or not, that's not important, but who is actually doing so. Additionally, what is the correlation that exists between those organizations who are engaging in those behaviors that are socially responsible and the outcomes? I'm interested here in measuring employee engagement and business metrics, and as set by those organizations, and the impressions of success. So how do we do this? To determine corporate social responsibility towards employees, I visited the research on learning organizations. Senghi, as we know, is the most widely known for his work in corporate social responsibility, but there are many others who have also contributed to this body of knowledge. I'll draw on work for the framework of my research from Garvin et al. In 2008, where they condensed those 5 principles of the learning organization to 3 solid building blocks, and those are outlined here. First, employee experience; second, group learning process; third, role of leadership to support those 2 things. And the idea is to come up with a way to measure how organizations are honoring aspects of these 3 building blocks or not, and then determine if there's a relationship between engagement and social responsibility actions and outcomes. So a closer look at each of the building blocks will show us sort of how I'll frame my questions in the research. I want to look at employee experience, so I will be looking at the ideals of a learning organization, which includes mental models and the pursuit of mastery. And the research that I'll focus on, the research questions that I'll focus on for these elements will be recruitment strategy, which is how do employers assess that an individual's mental model will match the existing culture? What is their process for that? And training, how do organizations support the transfer of knowledge and the evolution of those mental models? The second building block focuses on group dynamics and navigating the process of knowledge transfer. So it includes the learning organization concepts of mental models, shared vision, and team learning. The research questions will focus on organizational structure, performance management practices, teams and groups, how they're managed, supported, etc. Customs, and these include the observable and the underlying customs. And then finally, managing change. And the last piece, which I haven't quite figured out as clear of a structure for this, but it will look at how leadership supports the first 2. And this includes many behaviors for evaluation. And part of the first piece of the work that I'll do is some focus group testing, and that's where I'll solidify these ideas of leadership that support the first 2 building blocks that I mentioned. So how will I do this? I mentioned the focus groups. This is a 4-part study, and my SRAP for this program is just the beginning of it. It's the research, the literature review, the proposed methods, and the expected outcomes. And then over the next year, I'll conduct these 4 studies. So the first will be a pilot focus group, and that will be just 2 focus groups, 2 different approaches to how I plan to do the actual focus group testing. The focus group testing will take place in October in Colorado for a conference where it's a national conference it's a professional conference for cartographers. The third is a survey, and that'll be an online survey, 30 to 45 minutes of an online survey with several questions. All those questions, I have a draft that will be included in my final SRAP that's submitted, but they'll also be influenced from those focus group topics. And then the final thing will be semi-structured interviews, and those will that will be up to 30 people. I would love to get 30 people for those interviews. That I don't know what the support will be for that, but that's the hope. And those will start in July of 2017. And we'll start at an international conference being held in the United States this year in Washington, D.C. And finally, what I hope to produce with this are 3 publications. The first will be out of the focus groups, the second focus groups, the actual focus groups, and that'll be published in a journal called Cartographic Perspectives. And it'll also be open for public comment so that I can get more input on how should I structure the questions, that sort of thing. The second publication will come from the online research, and this again will go back to Cartographic Perspectives, the results from that. And the intention for that is that it's coming from that field. I really want to support that field for all the time they're giving me, and provide that knowledge and that data back to them. And then finally, I'd like the interviews and the entire process to be submitted to a journal for industrial and organizational psychology, so that it can be used hopefully more broadly, because cartography is really a microcosm for so many different types of industries. And with that, I hope that it'll be applicable to many types. So I look forward to watching your videos and reading your papers, and to being done in a few days. So congratulations, everyone. Take care.